Render therefore unto Caesar the things which are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's. I don't know about you, but this is one that when I hear it in my head, I hear it in the King James language. I don't hear it in the language we heard this morning. Maybe it's because this is one of those that it's worked its way into our language, into our vernacular, and we kind of use it as a shorthand. Render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's. We all have heard that. Give to the emperor the things that are the emperor's just doesn't quite ring in the mind the same way. But it's one of those that sort of become part of our vernacular and something that we say regularly, even if we don't exactly know where it comes from or what it means. And especially in a culture like ours that at least claims and actually pretty much practices a separation of church and state, render unto Caesar kind of has come to mean, well, we all know the government's going to get theirs, and God's going to get God's, and we get what's left. But the assumption is that the two are completely separate, and it's just everybody gets his own. But of course, this separation of church and state is a really modern idea. Nobody in the first century, it wouldn't have occurred to anybody in the first century that the church and the state, the church and the government would be two separate things. It certainly wouldn't have occurred to anybody in the Roman Empire. In any ancient empire, it was just understood not only that the church and the state were the same thing, but that the emperor was the son of God, or in some cases a god. In the Roman Empire, the emperor, as soon as he became emperor, was acclaimed as the son of God, and then when he died, became a god and was worshipped like a god. That's why there are so many statues of different Caesars, different emperors around the empire, because he was worshipped as a god. Now, if an emperor was smart, if he was a good politician, he would allow all the local religions, all the other religions, all the other gods to be worshipped, so that, okay, you can worship Mithras, you can worship Isis, you can worship all your gods, as long as everybody understands that that's subsidiary to worshiping Caesar. Worshiping Caesar is number one. So the idea of separation of church and state wouldn't have made much sense to people. The terms didn't make sense. And so the question that the Pharisees are asking Jesus, is it legal or not to pay tribute to the emperor? It's not just a question of, well, should a good Jew pay his taxes? In a world like ours, where church and state are separated, it's just a question of paying taxes, and it becomes sort of a trivial question. It's sort of like, is it all right for Christians to ride bicycles? Is it all right for Christians to drink coffee? I mean, who knows? Who cares? It's just two completely different things, and it doesn't seem to have anything to do with one another. But the question that the Pharisees and the Herodians are asking is a much more interesting question when you realize that paying tribute to the emperor is paying a tithe to another god, that worshiping the emperor is worshiping another god. So the question is not, should we pay our taxes? The question is, can we worship Yahweh and worship another god at the same time? Now that's a much more interesting question for a good Jew or for a good Christian in the first century or the 21st century. Now remember that for the past several weeks we've been reading about Jesus in this high-stakes, high-tension series of challenges in the temple. Remember, at this point in Matthew's Gospel, Jesus has marched into Jerusalem with all his followers. He's come into the temple. He's overturned the tables of the money changers, which is a really big revolutionary act, something that's definitely going to get the attention of the authorities. And he's been engaging in this back and forth challenge with the Pharisees and the temple authorities. He'll ask them a leading question to make them look bad. They'll ask him a question. He'll turn it around and zing them. It's sort of this escalating game of call and response. It's like kids on the front porch playing the dozens. Each time it ratchets it up a little bit more until we start talking about one another's mamas, and then we got to be careful, right? So they're just ratcheting up the tension each time with these questions and responses. We've all seen this. We see it right now in this season because of all the televised debates on TV. We know a gotcha question when we hear one. The question that there's no good answer to. That's what was happening in today's gospel when they asked him about paying taxes to the emperor. This is a question with no good answer. This is, Governor, you said in 2002 that you would never raise taxes, and yet you imposed this fee upon use of blah, blah, blah. Have you changed your mind, Governor? It's one of those questions that there's no good answer to. And the Pharisees are particularly tricky here by bringing along the Herodians. Now, we don't hear a lot in the New Testament about the Herodians. They're not somebody that Jesus hung around with a lot. They're not somebody that gets talked about a lot. But it was particularly clever of the Pharisees to bring them along. Now, there were as many parties, as many groups in first century Judaism as there are in today's politics. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but suffice it to say, the Pharisees opposed Rome. The Pharisees were resisting the Roman occupation by trying to follow every letter of the law of the Torah. They were rejecting the law of Rome in favor of the Torah, and they were rejecting Rome and just ignoring Rome, and that was how they were resisting the empire. The Herodians had thrown their lot in with the empire. Herod was the king that was appointed by Caesar, and the Herodians were basically ones who said, yeah, we'll collaborate, we'll go along, we'll compromise our religion, we'll do whatever we can if it gives us more power. So there are these really strange bedfellows here. You've got the folks who were the kind of the passive resistors to Rome, and then the folks who were in bed with Rome, and they're coming together to try to embarrass Jesus. We see this in our political system too, don't we? People from opposite sides of the spectrum that are drawn together by a common enemy. It's like a Tea Party person and an Acorn person coming together trying to embarrass a Republican candidate because they may hate each other, but they hate this other guy more. So the Herodians and the Pharisees come together and ask Jesus this no-win question to try to embarrass him. Is it lawful to pay taxes to the emperor, to pay tribute to the empire? And if he says it's lawful to pay taxes, well, then the people are going to hear that, and they're going to say, well, he's a collaborator, he's a tool of Rome, why should we listen to him? If he says it's not lawful to pay taxes, the occupying Romans are going to hear that. They're going to say, this guy's a troublemaker, he's telling people not to pay taxes, he's going to be on the wrong side of Rome. So there's no good answer to this question. And you can almost hear Jesus rolling his eyes as he says, why are you putting me to the test, you hypocrites? Come on, really? You're going to go there? We're going to do this? All right, let's do this. And then Jesus asks for a coin. Now, maybe this is just a visual aid. Maybe this is just a way to make his point more vivid. But there are a couple of things worth noting here. I don't want to make too much of the first one because it may just be the way the story is told. But I think it's interesting that Jesus has to ask for a coin. Jesus doesn't have a coin in his pocket. He doesn't just reach in and grab a coin. And to me, that says something about Jesus' poverty, certainly. But in the context of this story, I think it says something about Jesus refusing to participate in this economy, refusing to participate in the Roman economy with the Roman coin. Maybe that's more than is really there, but I think it's worth kind of noting. But this coin in particular, this is a U.S. quarter, this is not a Roman denarius, I didn't have one in my pocket. But this coin in particular that they're talking about has Caesar's head stamped on it. What do Jews believe about graven images, right? For a pious Jew, even to carry around a coin with a picture of Caesar on it would have been blasphemous. They take this prohibition against graven images very, very seriously. So much so that a lot of Jews wouldn't carry a Roman coin with them in their purse. And so much so that you couldn't even pay your tithe in the temple using a Roman coin because it has a picture of Caesar on it. That's why all the money changers were in the temple. It wasn't just like a flea market. It wasn't like a church carnival. They were there because you had to change your money. You came in with the Roman coins that you got for your work during the day. You couldn't pay your tithe with that. You had to change those for Judean shekels, which didn't have a picture on them, so that you could pay your tithe. That's what the money changing was about, and that's how seriously the Jews took this issue of having a picture of a person on a coin.